This is yet another episode of Q&A Live with Omwami Sande. Recently, Honorable Aden Duale, the MP for Garissa Township and the immediate former majority leader of the National Assembly of Kenya, sought a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security and Administration, wanting to be told why are over 20,000 Somali youth of Kenyan origin are not registered as persons and as citizens of Kenya. They don't even have IDs. Then a friend of mine from Mandera, a young person by the name Muad Khalif, asked me a question. Can you tell us on Q&A Live how this historical mistake came about? And I want to tell you, Muad, and many of you young people who may not know, that in the scramble for Africa, countries were divided according to how Europeans saw it fit and how it fitted their interests. And that's how the shape of Kenya became. And tribes and clans were divided irrespective of whether they are on both sides of the country. For instance, there are Maasais of Kenya and Maasais of Tanzania. There are Luyas, Samias, and Tesos of Kenya and the Tesos, Samias, Luyas of Uganda. Similarly, we also have Somalis of Kenya and Somalis of Somalia. This is the real truth. Just the same way we have Somalis of Kenya and Somalis of Ethiopia. We have the Gabras of Kenya and the Gabras of Ethiopia. We have the Boranas of Kenya and the Boranas of Ethiopia, and Somalias and Boranas of Somalia. This is the truth. It is not of our own making. It is historical. It was done by the imperialists in their scramble for Africa. So, fast track into independence time. And Somalis now of Somalia, under their leadership, wanted the whole of what we called the Northern Frontier, later called the Northeastern Province. They wanted all that part hived off and given to Somalia as a republic. Our first president, the late Jomo Kenyatta, said no. And is quoted widely saying, "You better take your people away, but no inch of Kenya shall be hived from Kenya. Kenya is for Kenyans." Immediately that happened, we began an internal strife, internal war between the Kenyan government and the Kenyans of Somali origin. They call themselves shifters. So up to until late 90s, the northern province or northeastern province or the northern frontier was an insecure area, because they were fighting for emancipation. They were fighting for their rights. They were fighting to be recognized by the government. The government that didn't give them what they deserved. They didn't give them better education. They didn't give them what their children deserved, what their citizens deserved. They were rated as second-hand citizens throughout Kenyatta regime, good part of Moi regime. These matters were made worse by the what we call the development paper of 1969 by Tom Mboya. This paper was tabled and adopted by the government, which made sure that development only went to areas where they considered productive. More Kenyan revenue, more money was allocated to areas where was considered productive. But areas of northeastern and many of the arid and semi-arid areas, like Turkana, like Marsabit, were considered less productive. Hence, they were not allocated equal resources, national resources. So that's why we have the historical injustices that have perennially followed these people. Access to education, access to good health, access to rights like even ID, in being identified, was a difficult thing, was a problem. It was even made worse by the Wagala massacre in Wajir in the 1990s. Whenever there were perennial famine, hunger, and strife in this area, these people were left to themselves and God. The government could only dole out food. So when there was no state in Somalia and there was war and the country fell apart, many Somalis came into Kenya as refugees. And the UNHCR set up camps. And many of the children of the Somalis and all those communities were put into the camps. Then the UNHCR started distributing food to these children, to these Somalis, refugees. But remember, the Kenyan Somali are hungry. They don't have food. They have been left to themselves by Gideon's father, Daniel Moi. Moi's government did not care. So, these children who are neighboring the refugee camps, what do they eat? And they see their fellow human beings being fed by the UNHCR in the camps. That is how they decided they must find a way to survive. The second aspect was they also saw a number of Somalis from Somalia being flown out of the country into Europe, into America, given travel documents to go for better pasture, for greener pasture in Europe. What did our people decide to do? They also wanted to survive. So they went into the refugee camps and registered themselves as refugees to be able to get food, as refugees to be able to get education, better education, as refugees to be able to get health care. There was better health care in the camps. They were registered as refugees to be able to be given travel documents, permits, passports to go abroad. That is how many of them ended up in the refugee camps. So don't ask. I see some people who are, I dare say, illiterate, yet educated, asking on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Twitter, asking how did these people become refugees? They are Somalis, should go back to Somalia. No. I dare say that there are few who actually are Somalis originally who tried to get into our system, into our land. A few. But many of them, the 20,000 you hear about, were actually vetted by elders, Kenyan elders, and the Kenyan systems, and the chiefs and the administration, by a commission that was set up by this government, and verified and clarified that these were actually Kenyans. They deserve all rights of Kenyans. The historical injustices pushed them into survival in the camps, in the refugee camps. We are now not saying that these Kenyans who had to survive have now become stateless. A matter of statelessness must be addressed by the Parliament of Kenya and the government of Kenya squarely. And that is why, for sure, in 2017, this president, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, ordered the registration of our people in Wajir and in Garissa. The question is, why hasn't this order been obeyed? Why hasn't the Ministry of Internal Affairs, through CS Matiang'i, why hasn't the PS Kihalangwa formalized the president's order that these 20,000 plus Kenyan young people been given IDs, being given access to jobs, being given access to education, being given access to high education loans board funds, being given access to women enterprise fund, youth enterprise fund, be given access to a passport to go out genuinely and fend for themselves. This is the question Aden Duale is asking. So it should not be played down just because he's no longer majority leader. He may not be majority leader, but he is the member of parliament for Garissa Township, where many of these people live today. And that's why you hear when they pass Kitui, Mwingi, as they come to Nairobi, you hear them being asked, umetoka wapi? And you hear many of them say, ninatoka Garissa, ninatoka Wajir, naenda Kenya. It should be shame on us. These are Kenyans, taxpayers, born here like you and I. Unakatalia mchanga na utazikwa kwa 4x6. Ama ni 6x6. Hapa tu. The 20,000 plus must be vetted. The government must do all it can. The parliament, especially the Committee for National Security and Administration, must camp in Wajir and Garissa and dig out these young people and give them their rights. Otherwise, we are doing wrong. People like Ilhan Omar, a congresswoman from Minnesota, now a congresswoman of repute in the US, and her father and her grandfather, after immigrating from Somalia where there was war, they came into refugee camp in Garissa and were here for over 4 months, for over 4 years, before they found refuge in the US. So our Kenyan young people were seen, who were born in 1985, 86, and early 90s, like Ilhan Omar. And they saw that. And they saw these ones were getting opportunity to go away. Were they going to sit back in a province that had been neglected, in an area that had no food, access to education was limited, access to health was limited, female genital mutilation was the order of the day, early marriages for the young girls was the order of the day? What were they supposed to do? Sit back and sleep hungry when the government is not distributing food? When Senator Gideon Moi's father had actually neglected northeastern and all of the northern frontier, when the civil servants who erred, who stole, who grabbed, who killed in the lower rest of Kenya were sent to northeastern as a punishment. You are actually transferred to northeastern as a policeman who had murdered down here, who had stolen, who had been interdicted and reinstated. You are transferred to northeastern as a mode of punishment. Who are not performing, you are sent to northeastern as a punishment. So, my friend Muad Khalif and young Kenyans, when we talk about historical injustices, when we talk about some families taking over Kenya and ruling us badly, when we talk about time to change and bring younger people into power so that they can be able to determine our future, is because the historical injustices are equal to dynasties of Kenya. Thank you.